and welcome to the 13th Annual Antiques Appraisal Day. The Historical Society of Carroll County is very proud to put on this program today and surprise a lot of people by the value of what they bring in.
This is such an exciting day, and it's an awful lot of fun to just watch what people bring and watch them be surprised when they find out sometimes what these things can be worth. We would first of all really like to thank our sponsors. Our gold sponsors are BB&T Bank, the Velnosky Group at Morgan Stanley, New Windsor State Bank, Lehigh Cement Company.
And I'll add my word of welcome also. Let me start by just highlighting our silver sponsors who have supported us. Carroll Lutheran Village, Carroll Community College, Fairhaven, Dulaney, Leahy, Curtis & Beach Law Firm, M&T Bank, the Teeter family, and McDaniel College. And our bronze sponsors are MarketWorks, Mills Communication, and PNC. They're all part of our sponsoring group that helped to underwrite this event.
My great-uncle's grandfather, who was a physician in Nanticoke, Pennsylvania. Most of the furniture that came out of his home was post-Civil War. You know,
It's a lovely old rocker, and I love that needlepoint seat.
But the needlepoint was not original. The original seat was in terrible shape, and I had a chair that had the needlepoint on it, and the chair was in terrible shape and not easily repairable. So I stripped that and had it put on here.
Just wanted to point out that you have an earlier colonial revival styles with serpentine crest rail. You've got arts and crafts style elements here. Even the supports in the back are arts and crafts. You do see that as well. And then more of a colonial revival, 19th century style turning here. So what's very common in this period of manufacture is a combination of styles all brought into one. The size is slightly wider than some rockers, and they did, for parlors, they had a sort of a female parlor and a male parlor oftentimes, and the furniture was designed specifically for the different individuals. And this was for somebody a little bit larger sized individual.
Okay, now our appraiser Nancy Gibson's going to give us some information about a coverlet that Ted brought in. Nancy, you want to?
Yes. Hi, Mr. Mr. Wilson was given this by a friend who got it at an auction in 1976. It was a home auction. It's an overshot coverlet in 3 colors: linen, creamy colored linen, red and green wool. What's important about this coverlet, it was probably locally made in Maryland by possibly an itinerant weaver. It's a very simple coverlet. In a geometric pattern, and the dyes, the red and green, are natural dyes. So these are not chemical dyes. I would date it around 1850, 1860, somewhere in that period, possibly a little earlier, even the 1840s. You can see that this is the head of the bed, and it's hemmed under. So we know that they considered this side to be the face. It's reversible. If you wanted to, you could flip it over, and the predominantly red side could be the base. It's fringed on 3 sides, not at the head. Little bitty fringe on the 2 side panels. And when you wove coverlets in the 19th century, your loom was about the size that you could throw the shuttle with your hands. That tends to be about 36 inches, give or take a few inches wide. And so you made one panel, you wove one panel, then you wove the second, and you sewed them together. In this coverlet, you can see the seam up the middle where they sewed it together. And you can see this is probably about almost 36 inches wide. Coverlets, unfortunately, aren't super popular with the public right now, but that goes in cycles. They'll come back to popularity. If he was to sell it now, it would probably be about $350. somewhere in that range. Is there anything you want to add about how you acquired it?
Yes, this was bought at an auction, private auction, where we bought the home in Woodsboro, Maryland in 1976. And my mother bought this for my wife and I at that time as memorabilia from the house.
Now, it's one of those things, too, that you could take a shot and just probably start using some of those words and doing an internet search, and you might come up with something that place, location, person, anything that would help us pin down a little bit more about, the origin of this. And as far as preservation of this goes, like most things, less is better. You want to try to keep this out of direct sunlight. You want to keep it out of moisture because, again, this is organic, so this would eventually deteriorate. The metal on this, I would say for right now, just try to clean it up generally. Don't do too much else with it. Don't try to polish it. Yeah, it's because this is patinated, it eventually probably the surface would rub off. And I think other than just try to keep it dust-free, that you're probably okay leaving it in the air. A little bit of oxidation is not going to hurt it too terribly much.
I was about to pack it away when I saw the ads for this coming up, so I didn't pack it.
Yeah, it's one of those things, as I say, as you keep doing your homework on what the inscription is, that I think will start to give us another piece to the puzzle that will help us tell the full story on this. But as I say, right now, it just sort of is reminiscent of the kind of award that would have been giving out to a fraternal organization going back to the early 1900s in Germany of that period. But I think it really has a tremendous visual presence and appeal that would some sort of transcend from being made in 1905 to even in today's markets. As I say, I could see it doing very well at auction. And as I say, if I were a dealer trying to sell it, I would just try to do a little more homework to tell that story about what the inscription is. Yeah, and we have a German inscription, which unfortunately we don't have any German-speaking people here today, so we can't get the full story and what it is. But we do know it was made in 1905, and we have an animal horn, likely off an oxen or a steer, that was used to make a part of the statue or trophy here. We're surmising it might have been a trophy given for performance or excellence in some field, but again, the fact that it's in German kind of limits us to how much we can read into that.
My older sister passed away, and along with that she had in storage, we opened up our grandmother's cabbage picking sack. We don't know where she got it, if it was her grandmother's, we never seen it. Wow, interesting. There's a lot of photo albums on sometime when we get chances to go through, maybe we'll find some pictures.
Well, that would be a wonderful thing. Anytime you can find an old photograph of the item that we have today, it's sort of just a great reminder of how it might have come into your family or how it might have been previously used, and tells us a little bit more of the story of the item. So that would be great if you could find that. But thanks for bringing it in. It's certainly one of the more unusual pieces I've seen in quite some time. So
Thank you.
yeah, we think this would appraise somewhere in the neighborhood of $200 to $300 at auction. We're hopeful that with a little more research, we might be able to know more about the inscription on here, so we can really tell the story of the item. And certainly, as an antiques dealer, if I can tell a story with an item, I would value it higher.
This is Tim Clark. He brought this to me last year to appraise. It was just a fragment. It's a very interesting object. These are silk tobacco premiums of actresses, baseball players, all popular between 1912 and 1915, and inserted into cigarette packages and tobacco tins. They were one of his relatives, I believe his mother's aunt, was able to crochet this sort of sashing and put them all together. It came unframed, and he didn't know what to do with it. So I suggested take it to a framer, have it matted with conservation matting so that it would be protected. And this is something you could put on the wall, or now it's really a piece of art, and use for hand down through generations. He can tell you a little more because there is a little more to the story that's quite interesting.
Hi. Many years, Mom had this 20 by 24 package of collection cards in a plastic bag. And for many, many years, she said we need to go get it appraised. We need to get it professionally done. Well, last year I had the opportunity of coming here and visiting with you and showing you that Mom did write RJR Nabisco to find out just what tobacco silks were all about. They did send her a book pertaining to the information about tobacco silks, gave that to you, and you suggested that we go ahead and get it professionally framed. Went down the street here to Ain't That a Frame, and they did a professional job for me, and I brought it back for your final appraisal.
Yes, it's wonderful. The framer, even if we could turn it around very gently, was being very good. He even put a Mylar bag on the back so that Tim could insert the thing from the catalog about the silks from RJR in the letter, and those will be protected as well. I originally appraised, gave a cost, a retail price when it was unmatted. I mean, it's matted but unframed, of around $350. Now framed, it could go anywhere if you wanted to sell it from $800 to $1,200.
There's famous movie stars from the 1920s. There's J.J. McGraw, I do believe, was Ty McGraw's and Tim McGraw's relative in there, a baseball player from the Giants, I do believe. So there's many movie stars and baseball players in there.
For $150, insure them for $350. Because you've got wholesale and retail, and wholesale is usually about a third of retail.
And the insurance value is replacement value.
Right.
And she would have a hard time finding these to replace them. So it would cost a little more than what she could sell them.
Right. Yeah, and so this we think is ivory. We're sort of split on it, but we're sort of thinking that it is ivory. Same period, turn of the century. We think because it's ivory, now it has a little bit of damage here. She apparently got mad at her husband one night and whacked him with it, so this little piece is missing here. But taking that into account, it's worth maybe about $225 to sell it and about $650 to insure it, somewhere around there.
This one appears to be about somewhere in the area of about a 90-point center diamond. It is a diamond, and it has some color to it. It's surrounded by sapphires. The mounting appears to be platinum, and I think from a retail standpoint, you would see these go anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000, depending on what store it was in and who the buyer was. The bracelet, what's interesting about the bracelet, this is something where I think you would get more as a set than you would if you sold them separate, because of the fact that they match and because of the similar cut of the sapphires around it. As you can see, the sapphires that are channel set in this. I was just looking at this, and I didn't get the measurement on the center diamond here. This appears to be about a 60 pointer, but there's probably, let's see. These are about 12 points apiece. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 14. So this is probably about 4 or 5 carats of diamonds total weight. You could easily see this go anywhere from, $4,000 to $6,000. I think they bring more as a set together. I hope you have it insured.
This clock traveled with my husband's mom from Germany, and we know it had to be at least in the 1930s, and has a lot of sentiment just because it's been in the family for a long time.
Yeah, so what we have a vintage dopey doll. All right, here's the things I like about it, and there's not too many negatives to it. It's in good condition. Sorry, did you see anything wrong with it when you looked at
everything's?
The condition is good.
Yes.
We got the original clothing. Clothing's there. There's no. A lot of times with these dolls, because kids got them, so they got scarred up because they were used. So yeah, the head's banged up. A lot of times, big pieces missing out of the head. So we have none of that. It is vintage. I think it's. When did Dopey come into existence? In the 50s? The 40s? Snow White, right?
It would have been in the 40s.
Yeah, so it's close to the genesis of when Snow White came out. So we're gonna say circa 1950. Now, there's two values to everything. There's what could you sell it for, wholesale, retail, what should you insure it for? Which one do you want to know? Why don't I give you both? Why don't I give you both, and then you and your dad can decide. This is your husband, it's your dad, right? Okay, I just want to make sure. When I usually see these things come up at auction, they usually sell in the $150 range. So I think if you were to sell it, you get around $150. Insure it, let's triple that. So we'll say $550, $500 is probably going to be your retail on it in a vintage store that sells Disney things. Dick, what do you think? You agree?
I'm with you.
Okay.
Agreed.
That's what I think.
You said you had more. You said you had others. I have a cowboy, an Indian. I have a bunch of them. So she's given me all of her childhood toys. I have, cast iron trucks that belong to her father.
Well, can you go back and ask her mom, why didn't you get all the dwarves? You just got the one dwarf and a cowboy and an Indian? They have nothing to do with each other. Nobody should have gotten all the dwarves.
Should have bought Grumpy. Nobody wanted Grumpy.
Right.
Everybody wanted Dopey.
All right, let me ask you a question. If you were one of the dwarves, if she's one of the dwarves, which one is she, sir? This is her dad.
She wouldn't be the dwarf. She'd be.
Oh, there you go.
Good answer.
I was going to say Sleepy because I'm
Sleepy. I would have been Sleepy. That would have been me. In college, I would have been Sleepy.
Don't eat any apples.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
These are beautiful though. The detail, I mean, you can even see her eyelashes on this and all the hair, and she's got double strand of pearls running through her hair, all the really fine cameo. The detailing is what makes the quality of the cameo. And on this particular cameo, you can see there's a little butterfly. You can see how right through the wings on one side where the sun's coming through it, the diaphanous display of her neckline and the detailing on the leaves and the hair. That's what makes a really fine cameo. Now this is a more modern one, 20th century sometime. The older ones have more of a Romanesque profile, and they she has a more modern profile, more like I'd say 30s and 40s probably. She could be even into the 60s. This almost looks like it might be a laser engraved cameo, but the quality of the engraving is the most important part. The other thing is that this is probably gold. The gold setting versus a silver setting. A lot of times you'll see vermeil, which is gold over silver. But I believe this is probably gold. This piece is probably worth between $1,500 and $2,000 if you were to buy it at retail now. However, because of the internet, a lot of things are being sold for much less because people don't know what they have and they just want some money for it. So you might find something that's nice for much less, but generally you don't know for sure what you're buying unless you have all the details as far as what the carat of the gold is and that sort of thing. This piece here is very unusual because it is a scene of Neptune and coming out of the ocean with the horses, and it has pearls, genuine pearls around it. This is also gold. It's a very heavy piece. It is also more modern piece, but the cameo may be earlier. This is very heavy because of the gold in it, and the price of gold right now, it's probably worth between $2,500 and $3,000. I have not ever seen one exactly like this. There are similar scenes from mythology that you see, but they're harder to find than just the profile of a woman's head. Another thing that's unusual is finding a man's profile in a cameo. These are shell cameos. You're going to find more shell cameos than most because that was an easier material to engrave, and also they can walk out onto the beach and just pick it up for free and engrave it, whereas agate or hard stone cameos are harder to carve and they had to actually buy the material. There's also coral cameos and lava cameos from Herculaneum and where the volcanoes erupted, and those are going to be worth more money depending on the quality of those too.
This is the doll that was been in my family for as long as I can remember. Got it from my mother, who got it from her mother.
So we know it goes back 2 generations.
Yes.
It may go back further.
Yes.
So I guess that's porcelain.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a china doll. Now what I want to do is I want to look, because what we hope to find on the doll is some sort of ID mark as to who made the doll.
Now her body is all wrapped because
Yeah.
it's all cloth, and we knew it was going to deteriorate over
So you
time. But
held
it's all
it.
the original.
Do you remember if you saw any ID marks on it, any lettering, any numbering?
That I don't know. She's been wrapped for as long as I can remember.
Okay.
Those are nicely done.
They are nicely done. Is
Ladies
the
and
clothing
gentlemen,
original?
there's
No,
lunch
unfortunately,
available
that's not.
on sale in the back of the room.
Wait, the
There are
clothing's
subs,
not original.
Chips. And
Where did you get
drinks.
the clothing?
We also have
My
some
mother made this
donuts
dress.
back there. And please look at our sponsor table at the wall over here on the other.
That's really
side of the room
important
and,
because
pick up some items there if you like. Thank you.
when we look at a doll, it's very helpful in terms of the value to have the original clothing.
Right.
Um,
Right, and I do have another dress for her that I forgot to bring with me today. I don't know if that was the original dress or not. I know. I don't think it was.
All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going on my iPad. I sort of have my thoughts on this, but I'm going to see real quick if I can see any sort of similar doll. All right. That's pretty close, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah, very similar.
Can you see that? Okay. So it's very close. This is an auction that took place. She sold for $10.
Okay.
And that auction took place. Let's see how long ago it took place.
But did she have a chair, a genuine chair from Japan?
That was it. That was
China.
in 2011. Here's another one. Okay, very similar. This is in 2004. Now this is an old one, but let me just show you again. You see that? That one sold for $50 back in 2004, and that's sort of consistent. What I'm thinking on this doll is I'm thinking monetary-wise. If you want to sell it, I think your best case scenario is 150, but I'm going to be conservative.
Right.
I'm going to say 100.
Okay.
So if you go to sell this, you're probably going to net out somewhere around 100. I think if you were going to insure it, like if a doll dealer had this doll, it'd probably be retailing at $250 to $325. The doll market's really slow right now. I mean, most doll people I'm talking to are just singing the blues.
Right.
That it's just not a strong market.
Okay.
So that's sort of what I'm seeing is consistent with what I was thinking. Just so you know, I don't need this iPad, but I have the iPad for a reason. See, most people, when I have the iPad, then people go, well, God, your job's easy. You just look it up on the internet. But it's not that easy.
No.
It's all in our head. Like, you wouldn't believe what's in Dick's head. You wouldn't believe all the information that's up there. And so when it comes out and we start spouting these numbers, it looks like we're just making it up.
Right.
It's just, how do you know? So I like to show people, hey, this is what I'm basing it on. I know it, but here now I'm showing it to you, and I like to do that.
No,
Well, we do that for a living because if you take it and you sell it and you take us to court, we have to be right. They're pretty close.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah.
Does that answer all your questions?
The chair,
think so.
the chair is a nice touch because it does fit and it's
it
nice.
does, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw this. She came up and we said, is the chair original? And it went back 2 generations. She goes, I don't know, it's always been with the chair. So Dick turns it over and there's a made in China sticker. He goes, it's not original.
It does. It
No,
really
it's-
is
yeah,
perfect.
it fits.
It really is.
Yeah. Yep.
What we have here are 2 Russian icons. They are religious paintings, and the idea of an icon was that you could see into the soul of God through these painted icons. These are quite old. They're not from the medieval period, but they are from the either late 18th century or early 19th century. They're very well painted. They're painted on a curved panel of very, very old wood. This larger one is worth probably in the range of about $1,500, and the smaller one right around $1,000. And then we also have this very interesting little painted cabinet that's just absolutely beautiful, probably from Poland, made as a souvenir item by probably a craftsman in the village that made the cabinet, and then an artist in the village that painted it. I've seen several of these over the years. They date probably from the 1850s through 1900. This one is particularly unusual because its original contents are still in it, and it is a bunch of rolled up fabric, which makes me think that this could have been used or was designed to be a sewing cabinet of some sort. You've got some thread up here, some rolled patches of material which could have been used for repairs, and then the little cabinet up top could have been the sewing implements like needles and smaller thread and things like that. But the artistry is beautifully done, it's in phenomenal condition, and I think it's worth right around $300.
That is beautiful. It's all hand painted?
All hand painted.
Hand carved?
Yes.
Please come to the front of the
Very
room.
nice.
Anything like that. Where do you display that?
That is in the den. I used to play with it when I was a child. Yes, I kept seashells in there. I even added some fabric, but I took the non-original fabric out. It was from my grandmother. She emigrated.
And she was a very careful, this is with her play toy as a child, because this is in almost mint condition. It's very nice.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Love you learning about it.
It looks like somewhere along the way it has been rewired, which is always good from a safety standpoint, and it's been well taken care of. So I think, continue to do what you've done, which is keep it out of the direct sunlight, which is always helpful. And value-wise, probably not significant in today's market, just because it doesn't have the same appeal to what people are looking for today. Just as we talked about for the vase, it was a very popular figure and a motif back in the 50s, but not so much today. I'd say probably in the $50 to $75 range, given that it's in decent condition. I assume there's a shade with it too. Okay.
Okay, so we have a shotgun reloading kit.
We do.
I didn't know they existed. Do you want to tell us about it?
I don't know that much about it.
He said it belonged, there's initials on the front, belonged to a gentleman named Charles E. Bowers.
That was a friend of mine.
And local here in Westminster, right? So we have a beautiful box, which is set up to be a shotgun reloading kit for shells. Many people recycled their shotgun shells. So we have a tray full of empty shotgun shells here, and this section of the lid is all filled with reloaded or ready to fire shotgun shells. Inside, we have the reloading tools, including some really interesting tins of gunpowder. This one from the Orange Ducking Powder Company from New York. And here's one from the American Powder Company. And the tins are very decorative, but there's cleaning rods and there's tools. This is a black powder solvent, and all the materials you would need to take down to your workshop and reload shotgun shells so you could go out hunting again. The box is beautiful. On the side of the box, you might be able to see that there's some old labels here for the rival shotgun shell company. So it's really, really quite nice, and from a collector's standpoint, would be worth right around $500. Yep. Decorative lid, nice handle.
How long have you had it?
How long have you had it?
Upstairs in the attic. I know it's 125. Because Keystone was 91, and it was Keystone.
Great. Wow. So it's at least 125 years old. Yeah. And evidently you had never taken that out because you were surprised to see all the things that were inside.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm hoping nothing blows up.
All kinds of people.
Don't go smoking around the box.
My husband did load one.